The Hollywood machine would be nothing without adaptation. The transforming of established works in popular media like books, comics, and television into blockbuster movies is one of Hollywood's most reliable formulas for making millions in the box office. Each year, dozens of works known and unknown are adapted into movies, much to the approval of the general movie-going audience. Animation, comedy, horror, drama, action, adaptation successfully crosses all genres of film to the tune of billions of dollars and countless cinematic awards. All genres except the niche market adaptation of Japanese animation into live action film. There's been attempts to adapt anime every year with marginal results. Alita Battle Angel did pretty good in the box office in 2019, but Ghost in a Shell right before it did terribly. Some would argue for Detective Pikachu and Sonic the Hedgehog, but even though they have anime, their success was pulled primarily from the fact that they are both adapted from extremely popular video games. Japan tries to make its own anime adaptations every year, but there are always limitations to the final product, often related to the script, the film's budget, and the reception these films have in the American market. A market that has proven capable of buying into foreign properties, as seen in the success of director Bong Joon-ho's Parasite. There have been some decent anime live-action adaptations in the past, but considering that the majority of the Japanese anime properties that are selected for adaptation are action thriller properties that fit so well into the superhero genre, the question is, when will America see a Hollywood-adapted anime property on par with the success of Marvel or DC's hero films like Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, or Wonder Woman? The answer to this question isn't easy. There are a number of factors that must be considered before a Hollywood adaptation is made that relates to how American audiences would receive this foreign property. These components include the translation to the live-action medium, how easily the plot can be adapted, and how well the film ties into the cultural appeal of American general audiences. Yet there are hundreds of anime, and many fit the script for what would make a good adaptation, yet to be seen. However, none fit the mold for what makes a great Hollywood superhero adaptation of an anime better than Fate, or how it's more commonly known, Fate Stay Night. Fate is an anime series about a war between mages and their heroic spirits summoned from outside of time and space to obtain the Holy Grail, a magic item that will grant its owner any wish of their choice. Fate Stay Night was originally a PC game for mature audiences in 2004, but gained popularity quickly when it was adapted into a manga in 2005 and into its first anime in 2006. Although Fate has its origins in gaming, it is best and almost exclusively known through its various anime titles like Fate Stay Night Unlimited Bladeworks and, most recently, Fate Grand Order. The Fate series has action, intrigue, plot twist, drama, fan service, and could potentially make Hollywood's millions or billions, a la Transformers or Star Wars. Now, this isn't true due to how popular Fate is or even how well executed it is as a television show in its storytelling, because there are plenty of other competent anime series and plenty of far more popular anime in Japan. It's not even a shonen. However, as far as Hollywood adaptations are concerned, Fate could be the best set up for success in Hollywood. Here is a breakdown of what makes Fate Stay Night the perfect anime property for Hollywood adaptation. When a work is adapted from animation into live action, one must consider what does the property stand to gain from being in live action and what will be lost. In comedy, often when the medium changes from animation to live action, physical humor is something that is lost because it seems real. A cartoon pratfall is funny, but in live action, humor from pain can draw sympathy or disgust rather than laughter. So, humor is one thing that must be translated or adapted so that it comes across as funny as intended and not painful. On the other hand, when you move from animation to live action, you gain an emotive quality that animation often cannot reach. When it comes to feelings like fear, sorrow, and joy, having a living human play these feelings makes it easier for the audience to connect to the characters, just because of the way that our brains are designed to empathize with human beings. Fate has the benefit of possibly gaining two very important elements as it makes the transition from anime to live action: an action and drama. Fate's Stay Night is just as much a drama as it is about war, with lies told, secrets revealed, and friendships tested. The emotional core of the Fate's Stay Night Unlimited Bladeworks series, for instance, centers around Emiya, whose emotional plot is about making friends he knows may die beside him, creating a family after being orphaned twice in his young life, the first time by the same war he was destined to fight in, and becoming a hero, a dream created out of being the only survivor of a devastating fire, while being the weakest and most ill-prepared mage to enter the Holy Grail War. Through the friendships and relationships that he forms in the war, he discovers the meaning of true sacrifice by learning that risking your life for someone or something precious is different than martyring yourself over causes that aren't worth the sacrifice. Fate explores the emotional journeys of its main and ancillary characters in some very interesting ways. Even for the most deadly of villains in the story, their ends are always given with a grain of sympathy and nuance. It is this emotional core that would translate so well into film. Emotion is better expressed and felt through the eyes of people rather than moving illustrations. Even though anime has a profound ability to stir up unique and often rarely seen emotions, humans live and experience their emotions through one another. Action, on the other hand, isn't necessarily better when translated from an anime. Often, action in anime is over the top, with physically impossible feats and very specific magical effects. And even with the use of CGI technology, the movements displayed in anime wouldn't translate well into live action. The work of translating those movements and effects into something that looks pleasing and accessible to audiences in live action has to be done effectively in any work. However, Fate has an advantage in that most of its physical feats are fairly practical. Much of the battles in Fate's Stay Night are performed by the heroic spirits that, despite having very awesome superheroic abilities like strength, flight, and energy projection, fight primarily using martial arts and common weapons, much like in the MCU. Generally speaking, most of the Avengers utilize practical beat-em-up style fighting rather than magic or inhuman maneuvers to win battles. Fate is similar in this regard. A live-action fight in Fate would probably look something similar to what we see in the Avengers. Still, Fate has something else that the MCU doesn't have much of in each battle. In Fate, not only do the spirits fight, but the mages fight too. Some have fairly impressive powers and abilities, which would translate well into live action because their magical and physical abilities are less spectacular than their hero counterparts, because, after all, the mages are human. A Fate movie would create a level of physical danger that isn't present in most Marvel movies, for instance. There are very few actual humans in the Avengers team, and even fewer who don't have some ability or technology that allows them to withstand a superhuman blow. At any time in Fate, a human character could be killed, easily, by an opponent or their spirit without the need of super strength, or even spellcasting. This creates stakes in fights, something that translates well into live action because often the mages in Fate are fighting right at ground zero along with their heroic spirits, and when the mages are hit, they may not get back up. Another reason transition into the medium of live action would be easy for the Fate series is because it isn't particularly stylized. The characters aren't dressed or animated in any unusual ways like maybe a One Piece movie would need to be, or even how the Speed Racer movie was. And the setting of the story doesn't need to take place in any one specific place. The Holy Grail War could take place in any time period in any part of the world. It could be in Japan, China, America, England, Mexico, and still have the elements it needs to tell the story. And even for iconic locations in the series, like temples, there are cultural locations across America and the world that could meet that need, because the majority of the show takes place in a city. In these ways, Fate is set up to meet the needs of a live-action translation. Adaptation of television works into film can be a daunting task when there are countless characters and plot lines that screenwriters and showrunners have to determine will make it into the final draft of the script. We can use 2010's The Last Airbender movie, an infamously terrible movie adaptation of Nickelodeon's Avatar: The Last Airbender series, as an example. They set the bar at condensing the 20 episodes of the first season of Avatar and over 7 hours of programming into a film that was less than 2 hours long. Multiple character building plotlines had to be erased from the movie narrative, and characters were circumvented. The intention of this is to create a more uniform and cohesive movie, because the movie format differs from most episodic television shows like Avatar. Otherwise, the movie would have been quite nearly as long as the actual television series, so the product of that film, as it was much more cohesive in its storytelling than what it would have been had they included every plot point and character. Fate has a similar problem, in that a single story of Fate is usually 2 12 to 13 episode seasons. If the aim is to fit only one season into a film, they must condense about 3 hours of programming into a single movie. However, for the first movie, the showrunners will most likely try to tell a full Fate story for the sake of the movie-going audience. Condensing 7+ hours of story is difficult, but Fate Stay Night has a benefit in that the story is simple. It wouldn't be difficult to adapt the Fate plot because removing side characters and subplots wouldn't do much to change the trajectory of the story. Most of Fate's more tedious moments come from confronting or defeating the various contestants of the Holy Grail War. Many of these contestants, for their specific episodes, are often made out to be the most threatening obstacle to winning the war, but a twist reveals them to be merely a roadblock. The hours spent in any Fate story building up these characters and threats, like Castor from Unlimited Bladeworks or Ryder from Fate Zero, can be significantly reduced to make room for the story of the main protagonist and to make the plot more cohesive. Some of these characters can be removed entirely and replaced with more watered-down versions of themselves, or analogs, something that the audience won't have a desire to explore more thoroughly in the film due to prior familiarity. Now, the basic plot of the Fate series is that one mage summons a heroic spirit who helps them enter the Holy Grail War and win the Holy Grail by defeating the other spirits and mages. The plot of this series is fairly simple, and because one of the key plot points is that there have been many Grail Wars throughout time, showrunners of the Fate movie wouldn't even be beholden to tell any particular Fate story with 100% accuracy because their movie could have just been a different war, in a different timeline. Without using any particular season of Fate as a blueprint for continuity and storytelling, the Fate series in many ways is a framework through which many stories can be told, which is why Fate has multiple shows that tell many different stories in unique and varying ways. The reason why a Fate movie could be so successful is because the story is flexible, and more focus can be placed by the writers and showrunners on character development, action, and storytelling than on hitting every plot point and introducing every character presented in the original anime. Although Hollywood media is a global marketplace where American films make millions of dollars in markets across the world, one of the most defining factors regarding whether foreign properties are successful in the American market has to do with whether or not American general audiences will be accepting of the foreign property. Does this property mesh well with the American zeitgeist? Will the story resonate with or be familiar to American audiences? These are questions that one must consider before distributing a foreign property nationwide, because it is possible that the property is too niche for broad appeal. Ultimately, the answer to these questions may affect showrunners' ability to make a competent movie in the first place. 2017's Ghost in the Shell was a recent anime adaptation that did poorly both critically and in the box office. It didn't resonate with general audiences. There's also 2004's Taxi and 2008's One Missed Call, all based on foreign properties that didn't do well with American audiences. The importance of cultural appeal and American general audiences are evident, even in American properties. Disney's John Carter famously lost the company hundreds of millions of dollars when general audiences refused to support the movie, making only $75 million domestically on a $250 million budget. The skill of the filmmaking used to produce movies like these, good or bad, is irrelevant if audiences don't resonate with the film. So, the question is, how will general audiences view Fate as a Hollywood movie? We've already established that a story in the Fate series could take place in any place at any time, but considering that Hollywood would probably follow the most familiar narrative, we'll look at Fate Stay Night and Fate Stay Night Unlimited Bladeworks because they are the most well-known stories in the Fate series, and Unlimited Bladeworks was written to be an alternate version of the former. Fate Stay Night is a show that is largely about heroism. Mages summon heroic spirits of the past to help them fight for the Holy Grail. These spirits could be just about anyone in the historical past or mythology. Hercules, King Arthur, Medusa are all very well-known mythological heroes in Fate Stay Night. However, the series as a whole has included real-life heroes like Joan of Arc, the French heroine, and William Shakespeare, the English playwright and poet, both appearing in Fate Apocrypha. What would keep a Fate Stay Night movie from including even more familiar characters to American audiences like Thor or Loki, or Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? In 15 years or so, when Superman becomes part of the public domain, what would stop them from using him? He is an American hero of legend. Oh, and what about Columbo? I'm sure the gleeful irony of Fate Grand Order's in-game universe, including Christopher Columbus as a heroic spirit, but portraying him exclusively as a bloodthirsty pirate, will not be lost on many. I mean, what else is someone who sails the high seas, pillages, kills, and enslaves foreign peoples? Fate has a premise that takes advantage of popular media and cultural icons to epic effect. Even its plot is similar to movies that Hollywood has enjoyed in the past. Fate is, in many parts, the MCU's quest for the Infinity Stones. Or even more specifically, Fate Stay Night is very much Highlander meets Hunger Games meets the MCU with its own twist. The connection that Fate has to properties that are well a part of the American cultural memory is an important factor in determining how well it would do for Hollywood. One of the strongest aspects of the American pop culture ethos is the comic book franchise formula. American comics, especially those of Marvel and DC, aren't just one story told about one character at a time on a medium like TV. American comics are many stories about many heroes and villains on teams in a multiverse told in live-action film, comics, serious dramas, and kids' cartoons. Fate has followed a similar formula in Japan. There are multiple Fate shows with varying tones and settings and stories. Fate can be a magical girl show like Fate Khalid, Liner, Prisma, Ilya, or it could be a YA novel like Fate Stay Night. Fate can be urban fantasy, high fantasy, comedy. It could be magical girl, it's YA. It can be sci-fi, fantasy, multiverse traversing, and so much more. The accessibility of this property is very much like American comics in that way. It doesn't cater specifically to any audience or platform. Furthermore, the characters in Fate are also diverse. They don't have to come from any one background or age group. Some of the Fate mages are quite old, and some of them are very young. If the movie were to be made, audiences could clamor over Clint Eastwood as the oldest mage entering the Holy Grail War. and John Boyega as his heroic spirit, later to be revealed as Shaka Zulu. Fate Stay Night isn't beholden to any one race of people or any one age group. Even gender isn't a factor. Fate Stay Night is well known for bending the genders of its heroic spirits. The possibilities are endless. Although Fate Stay Night isn't the most well-known anime in existence, it is probably the best setup for a possible Hollywood adaptation. It has a simple plot, it's action-heavy, it has drama, and it has wide appeal. Hollywood has already taken a chance on some of the more popular anime, but has largely failed because adaptation is a tricky business, especially when adapting anime into live-action film. When adapting anime, the point of it isn't that we're banking on the success of the anime to make money because it's still quite esoteric to many audiences. It is to say that this property is excellent. It's successful. How much more success could it garner if we took it out of a polarizing and niche market like animation or even books and put it into a medium that everyone can access? Live action film. How much more success would it have? How much more successful would it be? If this question is pointed towards Fate Stay Night, the answer is potentially the most successful Hollywood anime adaptation we've seen yet.